Welcome to another day. Yeah, where a few things have shown up. Got ourselves a water pump over here and a water pump, raw water pump bracket. But we also have a few pieces laying around that probably shouldn't be, including hanging and sitting over here. This is what we were working on before. We got everything painted up. Motor mounts are all done. What I need to do now is I'm going to run a wire brush inside of here and clear these bowlers out. So when I do put those, how about we just call them little stainless steel rods. We got to put them back in. We don't want them to get gummed up and sticky, you know, then making sure they stay nice and loose until we clamp them down with our bolts like they should be, instead of, yeah, it's a real pain, especially now that we're fitting this motor to this boat the first time. Any other time, you never move the motor mounts. As long as they go back on the same side, you're all good to go. This time around, you know, they got to be adjustable, so we're going to make sure they stay that way. And of course, I got to get this water pump cleaned up. Then I need to get working on this pile and get my Outdrive out. Okay, we got all that done. Put away. Actually pulled out a couple gaskets because I was just running around looking for some stuff and ran across them. Got our alternator bracket, got our motor mounts all put back together. I was looking over my water pump bracket here. Gotta say, when I make a mistake, I make a mistake. And I guess this is a mistake because nothing lines up properly. Went ahead and took my pump apart over here. I've got it all packed back in the box, so I'm not going to take it back out. But I was trying to get the holes to line up, and you know, and then I went downstairs and I looked at some online to see how they were actually, you know, done. And normally a water pump wouldn't matter, you know, it could just, orientation wise, it really wouldn't matter. It's just, you know, the outlets on the back may be up and down or side to side. It doesn't really matter. Again, the real thing about it is, with this one, of course, it's got a fuel pump boss on it. It's got to come out kind of like it should. And then on top of that, I took the one that actually goes around the water pump itself and I put it on the block over here, and it did not match, meaning that the holes are off by about a ½ inch. It looks just like one of the big block ones, but it just, nothing lines up or nothing fits. So I'm back on the hunt for that, along with researching some information, because I really need to know what's going on here. I've never had this issue. Every water pump I've ever had came with the bracket already attached to it. So I'm going to pack my water pump back away. As I said, I'm going to start looking around, see if I can find an alternative to one, and if it's an alternative, then it's probably the right one. And I scrubbed up my water pump, took the back off, made sure nothing was wrong inside of it, resealed the back with some RTV, put it all back together, and now I've got a single coat of black paint on it, and I'm telling you, everything looks better with a coat of paint. So that's where I'm at now. As I said, I can't do anything with those brackets down there. So I think my next adventure is going to be to move this pile of stuff and try to get my Outdrive out. And the Outdrive, there's nothing to do with it. And it's got the right yoke on it. It's got everything. It's perfect. It's the way it should be. It's just black. And it should be white. So that's the only change on that one. So that one can be 100% done and we can get it over with. So I guess it's time we really try to get it over with. Let's take a look at this Outdrive stand. And this thing's a piece of work, boys. Ha! It's one of the first things I ever built with my new welder over there a bunch of years ago. I bet you I could put 4 Outdrives on this thing with no problem. Stack them right on top of each other. One a bit bigger than the other one. I have another one over here. It's actually right over here. It's standing. The problem with that one is it's very compact, and it's great for just storing an Outdrive, but you can't spin the prop. You can't do anything with it because it's just not enough room to do all that stuff. So when I built this one, I built it to actually work on a drive. And that's how I came about with my little friend here, is I actually had to work on a couple drives. The deal was this. I bought this Volvo 250 and proceeded to break it within 100 yards of my boat ramp, but it had 1.3 gears in it. That's a 23, and that's the end of the prop lines for most Volvo Pentas these days. I had these 1.3 gears and I was like, yeah, these are going to have to go into something. So I built a Frankenstein Drive. I mean, as I said before, I had a piece from one place, the midsection was original, the bottom end was from another place, and then it had the 1.3 gears in it. And it worked, but you know, in the back of my mind I was thinking this whole thing is going to blow apart. So I'm on eBay one day and I find this guy, I don't know, about half hour, 45 minutes away, that's selling like a bunch of these Volvo drives, but they're 4-cylinders. So I email the guy, and this is back when you could actually make contact with the sellers without a whole lot of issues, and he gives me a phone number to call, and I call him and we start talking for a few minutes. And he's like, yeah, I've got 2 of these 4-cylinder drives. They were for 4-cylinder diesels. And I was like, oh, geez, I don't know. And he goes, well, they were, you know, they're relatively newer drives, too. So, I mean, they're in great shape. And he goes, I'll take $120. And I was like, a piece? And I just like that. And he was like, oh, no, for both of them. I was like, okay, I'm on my way. So, yeah, I bought 2 4-cylinder drives. And the theory is I was going to take the 1.32 gears and just put them right into the 4-cylinder drive, because the only thing that makes the gear difference is the bottom and those 2 gears. That was the theory. When I got them home and I got thinking about it, I was like, oh geez, I've never been that deep in a Volvo before. So I went ahead and I decided that I was going to take my leftover 1.6 gears. I was going to go ahead and I was going to attempt to do that first. And that's what this drive is. This was my first attempt at actually building a whole drive from top to bottom. After completing this one, or getting about 90% of this one done, I decided that, yeah, I'm going to do the second one, and I filmed it, and that is my Volvo Penta project on YouTube also. So this was actually the first one of the 2. They're stout drives. I mean, everything I say about my drive and my 19, you know, all the internals are a Volvo 280. I mean, the upper shaft, lower shaft, everything. I mean, I've searched the parts numbers. So they're much stouter drives than even a normal 270. With that, there is a really neat story, because somebody was looking over my shoulder. I'm not going to say what or who, but somebody was, because this was just stupid luck. I decided to do the 1.6 gears first, as I said, because I was a little nervous about taking everything down to nuts and bolts, basically. I did this drive. And remember, I had 2 of them here. They looked identical. I just chose whatever one of 1 of 2. And I decided, okay, we're just going to do this one, and we're going to put the 1.6 in this drive. And I went all the way through it. And there's some meticulous measurements that go on when you're measuring for thrust and all that stuff on the 2 gear fronts. I did all my measurements. And with the shimming that was in place already, everything came out perfect. I mean, I was well within specs, and I was thinking to myself, oh, well, that's probably the way they work. You know, everyone's within, you know, they try to keep the gear sets within a certain spec, and that way you only use relatively the same, you know, shim pack to actually set the gear lash. Boy, was I mistaken, because when I did the second one for the Volvo project, I already had all my numbers. And when I measured my shim pack and stuff, I found out that everything was just totally different. And I was like, oh no. Then I measured my gears and stuff, and it was like, they're totally different. I was like, oh no, this is going to be really bad, because, you know, try to find shim packs for Volvos these days. Unless you know what you're doing. If you're some backyarder like me, yeah, good luck. But I got it all tore apart, and I got everything, like I said, I got all my measurements done, and I went in and I did all my calculations, and it came out perfect. Don't ask me how. I wasn't trying to make it perfect, because I was already assuming that it was way off, and it came out perfect. So, not sure how it worked, you know, that way, and why it worked that way, but the reality is, if I would have done this drive second and the other drive first, and just tried to put the 1.6 gears in the drive that's on my boat now, it would have been a nightmare of trying to shim it out, and then I would have had the same issue with that one. But since I did it in that order, just because, it worked perfectly, and I didn't have to change a single shim. You know, that was I still to this day, I'm just like, wow, somebody was looking over my shoulder on it. But here we are. This is my 1.6 drive. It was my backup drive, of course, and it's black, and it needs to be white, which that means I have to first get it cleaned up, because it's full of dust. And then 2, I'm going to have to strip off every piece that I can and then repaint it, which, again, I mean, this thing's perfect, man. It drives me crazy. Everything's been cleaned and wire brushed and cleaned again. Jeez. That's all the mounting hardware. I mean, I have all the mounting hardware, which I've probably already cleaned up a set and have it in this box over here, but I didn't even realize that all the mounting hardware is just sitting in the back of this thing. But as I said, I got some cleaning up to do, but the main thing I really want to do today is I want to get it up on an angle here and get the bottom painted where it sits on the stand. Yes, my beautiful homemade stand. Like I said, it even has a box back here so you can catch all your parts and stuff that fall out. So as I said, I need to get it cleaned up and get the bottom painted. So that way it'll sit overnight, and I'll put some new blue tape down over my stand here, and it'll be able to sit on a new white, and we don't have to worry about, you know, leaving spots behind or anything like that. Well, it's not pretty, but it's on there. It's all it needs. On occasion, I have this weird thing happen with this paint. I don't know what the deal is, but it almost blisters like you put like stripper on it or something. Oh well, no big deal. As I said, I try shooting upside down with a spray can, and it's going to be a mess anyway. And as I said, the only thing I really want to do is get some paint on it, so when I put it on the rails there with some fresh tape, it actually is covered underneath of it. I can paint the rest of it when it's actually sitting flat. And in the same theory, I did the shift cover also, so it can stand up and I can just paint it tomorrow. Don't have to worry about the bottom of it either. But for right now, I really can't do anything else here, but I do have a ton of stuff to take downstairs, so I think that's the plan for now. And a way of finishing off the day is bringing down more stuff for more stuff and more stuff. Yeah, it takes a lot to put these seats together, and it's just all over the place at the moment. I mean, I need batten. This is actually, I have cushion for the seats over here, but it's not thick enough, so I had to have another 1 inch thick cushion, and it's a different consistency, and yeah, it's a whole bunch of different stuff. Even this stuff here, this is actually made so you can stitch through it. It's a padding, and that does, see how these platings are? That's what they do. They just stitch through the face of the vinyl, and they stitch it to this. Long story short, you end up with pleating. But yeah, I've got a ton of stuff here. I'm not sure if I have everything yet. I definitely need some more spray tack. I need a few other supplies, but it's definitely when I'm finished for the night, so we'll see you tomorrow. And we're back. Welcome to another day. See what I mean about that paint crackling? I don't understand the deal. Yeah, I have a little bit of a run here to get off of it too, so it's not a big deal. But I just don't understand that. I've had 1 or 2 times where it was really critical that the paint turned out nice just for the couple little tiny sprayings that I was doing, and it did that. And it only happens with the white paint. I've never had anything else do that. But, as I said, it's no big deal. We're just moving on here. Got a couple things to do prior to me working on that right now. One thing I need to do is get this guy. Come on. Alright, well, we got to get that guy unstuck and get the gasket mating surfaces cleaned up. How's that? For the obvious reasons. And last night, after I was done filming, I was downstairs editing and doing some research, and I had about 8 screens open, and I made about 14 trips up and down the stairs. And finally, I have everything. As I said, I had it all put away last night. Did not intend to bring it back out here in a mess, and yet I had to anyway, to prove to myself I was not putting this guy on backwards or doing something just totally stupid, because it was not making any sense at all. And the deal with this guy is this. This is a, of course, raw water pump, but with the Gen 5s, they don't have this boss on the side of the block, so you have to do something in a marine environment. And you can go with electric and do the pressure switch in the block, and so when it only gets up to 5 pounds of oil pressure, then the electric fuel pump will turn on. Yeah, that becomes a real set of complications most people don't need. That's why my fuel pumps in the race boat and actually in the Beesmeyer, because they're both electric, yeah, they're done by switches. I don't even fool around with this stuff. But long story short here, this is how this has got to sit up. You know, this is the front of the motor. Well, that needs to sit up like that. And the reason is because you fill it full of gear lube, and you fill it up to this first drain screw, I guess, or this top drain screw. Bottom one, of course, I guess would be for draining it. Wouldn't that make sense? And then of course, you know, you put your fuel pump in, and then of course everything in here is run and it's lubricated so it doesn't burn up. I've noticed a lot of people online complain. Oh, I only had it for 3 or 4 weeks and it burned up. I'm really thinking that they probably didn't put any lube in the thing. But that's neither here nor there. I went around and around, as I said, with this thing over and over again. And everywhere I put it, it would sit like this. You know, or it would sit like that even. And I'm like, oh, jeez, that's totally wrong. I went to every marine supply, motor supply, any type of Burt Cruiser supply, and I pulled up every one of their brackets. And I found a grand total of 3. Yes, there is 3 of these brackets. Of course, there's this one here, which we'll get to in a second. There's another one, it's like a half moon. It's got like a big section of it missing out here. Really chunky piece of metal. And there's a third one, which apparently is what I have on my motors out in the race boat, is if you look at it, this is not just a hole, but there's a bigger hole and it's slotted up. Only way you can tell online any difference between any of these guys, because this one's actually listed through many marine sites as a big block Chevy. And as I said before, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what side it's on, because it's, you know, the screws are, the holes are universal. But when you line this bad boy up, it comes up short. I know I'm just rambling on here because it's hard to show you exactly what's going on. But the bottom line is there's 3 of these brackets in the world. And I have one, I need a second one, and I know the third one doesn't work. Now it's been ordered, just waiting for it to ship. And speaking of shipping, I gotta say I got a little bug about something. I'm getting a lot of these parts in. I mean, they're like all over the place, of course. And I'm noticing that they're coming in these, you know, postal bags, but then they're wrapped up in another postal bag, that's wrapped up in another postal bag, that's wrapped up in another postal bag. And we wonder why the post office is losing money. Man, it's a bit chilly outside. I don't know. It's about 40 degrees with about 20-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah. But we didn't prep all this up for nothing. So we're going to have to go grin and bear it. But as I said, I prepped everything up. I know it's an excessive amount of blue tape, but it's the only other option is taking it apart. And believe me, I've taken some stuff apart here. All the bolts are gone out, the exhaust section of the midsection here, taking all the bolts out of the cap, because this one's actually a breather. It's got a big wide head on it. You know, it's just not going to work. Now, of course, I can't take any of these bolts out or holding the bearing case together down at the bottom or the midsection to the bottom. I'm not going to do that, because then we'll have oil everywhere. But I did use a couple corks to fill in some areas that cannot have paint go down inside, including what I'm going to fill over here and all that good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and hang my shift cover, and that way I don't have to worry about it even sitting. So I didn't even have to do the bottom yesterday. And I also have my prop cone, which is also going to need to be white, so it's going out with the rest of it and to be squirted down. Thinking the game plan is to try to get it in and out, in and out, in and out, so the residual heat will stay on the actual outdrive, because it's a big solid piece. I mean, it's room temperature, and if I take it outside for 10 minutes, it's still going to be room temperature when I bring it back in. And that's the game plan. Try to get some white paint on this guy and make it officially the new Nova 19's outdrive. As the sun went down, we got our third coat of paint on everything. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. All empty cans. Started off brand new. We're not putting anything together tonight, that's for sure, because it just came in like 5 minutes ago, so it's still wet, basically. And it's not soft and it's not anything, it's wet. The cold did nothing about helping it dry up, but in here is shell, and we'll let it kick off overnight along with these couple pieces up here, and we'll go ahead and we'll assemble this bad boy tomorrow. But for now, we have nothing else to do besides let that kick off, so we'll see you tomorrow. Alright, let's stop the rainbow from killing the king here before we get a copyright strike, and welcome to another day. It's a late start for a day, and it's cold as crap out, so we will not be going outside today. And what can be expected? It's winter time in Maryland. We get 4 seasons here, that's for sure. Not one of my favorite seasons, but I definitely need it. And I always look at it as a way of catching up on stuff, because when it's nice out, the last thing in the world I want to do is be sitting in the house doing upholstery or working on a motor. And it's like the last thing in the world I want to do. But today's goal is, since I chose to accept it, is to get the Outdrive put all back together. Get all this tape off, get all my bolts put back in, get my plugs back in, my dipstick, all that good stuff, and just prepare it for long-term storage, meaning a few weeks. And the nice thing about it is too, is this is not a 100% paint job. I mean, it's got a couple runs and things like that, but as it sits, they'll harden up, and worst case scenario, when I feel like it, I can just come out with a little bit of sandpaper, knock the run off, grab myself a nice can of white Rust-Oleum paint, and it'll match perfectly, and I can do all the touch up there. But it's definitely coated, everything's good, you know, it's all stuck, everything's fine. So as I said, the main goal is now is just to get it put back together, and that way later on, if I have a problem with it, sand it off and I'll just fix it then. Now we're going to put a tag on here. Put a dab of RTV on the back of it, just in case those little prongs that are probably working on 30 or 40 years old decide to break off. And not only that, but their little prongs on the back only hold it so much, so it's not like it's going to prevent vibration. You know, it's only these little metal or aluminum, or I don't even know what they are, lead. But with a dab on the back there, we'll be able to smash it down in place, and that way it won't vibrate and it won't want to break the pieces off. That would probably hold it all by itself, but now we get to get over here and put that side down, find something to push with, like this little screwdriver right here, and we're gonna up, and then we're gonna take these down, and that's basically how Volvo puts their tag on. We're ready to go put it on the Outdrive. And we take our little bolt, slip it in. Oh, let's walk over to the Outdrive, and up it goes, like so. That goes in like that, and that's about as good as I'm going to leave it for now. I'm actually not going to screw it in place. As I said, I painted it yesterday, so if I screw these things down hard, it may actually still make some contact and stick to it. So I'm just going to leave it loose for now. It's no reason I got to take it off anyway before I actually even install it. So no reason to tighten it all down. But overall, Thing looks damn good. And it should. As I said, there's some minor runs and stuff. I'll just let it dry up over next few weeks here, get nice and hard, and then I'll sand them right off and just hit it again with a little Rust-Oleum. Spray, 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 bomb. And it'll be good enough, that's for sure. Especially after getting dragged through the Chesapeake Bay out here. I'm pretty much done out here for this evening, so I'll catch you all tomorrow. Welcome to another day. Yeah, we've gone and got our 454 out. This is good. I like this. Just had to dig it out from the hole over there. It took a few minutes. Just kind of looking over the beast here. Got some minor changes I got to make. It was in an inboard, so my first thing is the flywheel. I've had that happen to me before. Had the motor in, whole 9 yards. Went and hit the starter. Wing! The ring gear is on the outside for an inboard. This motor is the identical one I have in my Beesmeyer right now. It's a Gen 5 454. Yeah, I bought the hell out of these Gen 5s. I love them. Nobody wanted to touch them just because they didn't have a fuel pump, boss. It's like, you know, you can get an electric fuel pump. And if you're going to put like fuel injection on it, you probably need one anyway. So I never understood the whole, we're not going to touch Gen 5s. I mean, they're upgrades from the Mark 4s. They're not as good as the Gen 6s, according to some people with oiling layouts and stuff like that. But I like them. I've had really good results with these guys. I mean, I've probably had 4 or 5, something like that. So yeah, and like the last one I bought, I paid $500 for. It had like, I don't know, 150 hours on it. It was a backup generator for an FM station. It just got maintenance. They used it for 1 day during a storm, and after that they were like, well, you know, we probably should have a brand new setup here in case that ever happens again. And they got rid of the Gen 5, and it was run on propane, so it was run real clean. I mean, $500 complete. I mean, I even got pieces of the propane setup, which I sold one piece for like $450. So realistically, I think the motor cost me $50 just because it was a Gen 5. I don't know. With this boy here, this one was taken care of nicely because it wasn't a race boat. It was a parade motor, on quote unquote. And what I mean by that is it's built, but it's not overly built. It was meant to be able to putt around in marinas and stuff like that. You know, that's what boat shows are. As I said, I mean, I tried to do what I could. I mean, the whole motor's been balanced from the balancer basically to the flywheel, everything internally. Figure I'll be putting an Allmand 750 on it. I like those carburetors. They're really good marine carburetors. Even though there are only minor differences between those and the auto carburetors, and we found that out in an earlier race boat life, which if you're interested, go look up Allmand and race boat life. But yeah, it's a nice motor. It's a good motor. They worked fine for what I was doing it for. Just when I had the opportunity to build a K-key for 482s and put in authentic offshore race motors from the time period, I had to jump on that. So this guy got put under a shelf and the other one got dropped in the Beesmeyer because that's what I had one of the K-key for motors in at the time, and it was just too ridiculous for the boat. It really was. It was just too ridiculous. I truly believe that this big block is truly too ridiculous. I think it really needs a small block personally. But that's a project that I'd like to jump into at another time. But right now it's powered and the motor runs great, so we're just leaving it like it is. So we got our motor out. We've got some things I need to look at, a few other things I need to do. Then eventually here I need to get it up off this stand, and we're gonna have to get some motor mounts on it, which the stand actually attaches to the motor mounts, so we can do our measurements to figure out how big it is. Not only that, but I can't put the bell housing and all that stuff that's sitting over there on the motor while it's on the stand, because it bolts up to where the bell housing actually bolts up to. So yeah, I just but you know, we got to make steps here. The first step is to actually get it out and take a look at it. Then the next step is to clean up all this mess, and then the next step will be to figure out what our next step is going to be. We have one mess cleaned up. and another one started. Just spent about the last hour over here in my nuts and bolts collection. Yeah, you don't think about that. You know, when you're taking motors apart, you usually just throw them into piles, and half the time they get thrown away. Well, I'm a little anal about that. I take them all when I ain't got nothing better to do, and I semi-sort them out into these bins. And I have an insane assortment of nuts and bolts that it's really hard to find sometimes. I mean, honestly, like these little guys right here, what are they, like 5/8, whatever they are? To find a little short one like that, I mean, you're only going to find them on a motor. I mean, I'm sure you can find them inside of a hardware store for $2.75 each, but I've got tons of them. And since it's not marine, i.e. stainless or at least galvanized, and they can just be regular old nuts and bolts, because that's what the majority of the whole thing is done with. I can't go in and change it. Stainless wouldn't even be as strong as some of these bolts anyway. But in my travels, I went ahead and I found all the bolts for the water pump. Got all the bolts for my bell housing. Yeah, I had everything else. I had the way to tie the donut on and tie it to the transom and all that stuff. Every bolt that I would ever need in 100 years. Except for the bolts that actually attach it to the motor. Got those out. And they're little oddballs all by themselves. I mean, you would think they were, what, I believe it's 1.5 inches. But they're not. They're short of 1.5 inches. But I had them in stock, so hey, everything's good. Won't have to put extra washers on them and stuff like that. I've also discovered I don't need a few things. Like, I pulled these two different oil systems out, which I'm going to need some sort of a remote at some point. And I discovered that this one already has it on it, because now that I remember, the K Kiefer is a Mark IV motor, so it actually has a different one. So that's already installed. That just saved me some money. And I pulled the plugs out, went ahead and squirted a squirt of Rotella oil inside each one of these cylinders. I have spun the motor over the last, I don't know, couple years. It's been sitting underneath there, but I'm not religious about it. So I just pulled all the plugs, did one squirt each, and rolled it right over, and it's nothing hung, nothing stuck, so it's fine. It should be good to go. And one other thing I was playing with here is my alternator bracket. Ta-da! Yeah, it's filed off on that end because it didn't have the insert into the actual cast piece. Must have popped out, I don't know, but I had to find one, which I only have 2 in my whole garage, and they were hidden. So now I only have 1 of them left. But I had to insert that, grind it down a little bit so it would actually fit in the hole, and then insert it and then grind it off. So I have to repaint this. And I also, in the process, got all the bolts I need to actually attach it. And I got all the bolts I need to attach the raw water pump. And I've kind of got a good plan on which way I'm going now. And I don't think I'll really get to much more tonight because it's getting a bit late. But until then, we'll see you. Welcome to another day. Yeah, I'm out here again just sorting out some stuff. It's eating up an immense amount of time. I wasn't even going to film it, but then I kind of got the idea I probably should, to show that this is what happens sometimes. Today I figure I'll be working on my water pump pretty much the whole day. And what I mean by that is my new bracket has come in, and it is a lovely little monster itself. It looks almost like the other bracket. Like so. So close. If I wouldn't have found this one easy enough, it was pretty much a point and click, so I knew which one it was once I looked at them. If I wouldn't have found this one, I had every plan on just extending this hole and making it a little different. But as you can see, it is really, really close to the same thing. The problem with that is it has 4 holes in it, like the other one does. And this is the plate to the water pump, which, as you can see, has 5 holes in it. Now, lucky enough, the way this one mounts, as I said, you just hook it right onto the block like that. Makes it easier for an install after you got hoses and such and you're trying to drag it up through the bilge. But when you do that, it actually comes out correct about where it's supposed to be. So it only ends up being 1 hole that I need to drill instead of arranging the thing all the way around like I was pretty much going to have to on that one, because as you can see, this one has a dog leg in it, like that. And with that doing that, when you put this on here, it makes that whole tray, which is, of course, this guy here, it makes it all sit like really sideways. And you can't really have that. It's got to sit up straight. So lucky enough, this one, as I said, will require just a single hole. Like so. Like so, actually. So I got to make one right over here somewhere. But yeah, this is how it's going to eat up my day, to be honest, because now that I've got that figured out, I have to press this pulley off. Yeah. And then on the way, I'm going to measure it up, actually, to make sure I put it back on exactly where it was. And yeah, that's the way you got to deal with that. It's the first one I've ever had to press off. I probably would have not bought this one if I knew that, and just would have had with the one with the pulley that you have the bolts on. But lucky enough, I do have my press, and it's expandable. It is the little guy, but as I said, I made these long legs on it, and we have holes all the way down. And if we have to, it can be up to, I don't know, 2.5 feet tall or so. So we have plenty of room for it, but it's just, as I said, it's just another added step and an added step and an added step. So I guess right now I need to get this one drilled. And from there, I'll go ahead and I'll pop that pulley off. And then we'll try to put it all back together and see if it actually works. It is concerning me on how low this thing is actually hanging. But I don't know, I'm being a little paranoid probably. It's not like the balancer or something is like hanging on the fiberglass on the bottom. I mean, as you can see, there's probably 6 inches of oil pan that hangs below it, so I don't know. I'm just overly panicking. And as I said, this is the problem when you're doing one project and it's been a while since you've been in the other project, and you're trying to combine the two, and it's like, oh no, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about that, and that ain't gonna fit, and what about this? And then you get out there and look at it and go, what was I worried about? But I'm gonna get my drill and get going. We went ahead and put one hole in, and we put everything pretty much up and together, and it wasn't right. Not really sure what happened, but I ended up having to put 2 other holes in it, one here and one there. And yeah, that's done. But of course, now I have to paint it because it's been all chewed up. Then it just got a whole lot worse. To put this bracket on, you have to actually remove the pulley from the pump. And I have no idea why they put this thing on so damn tight right out of the factory, when they know you have to remove the pulley to put the bracket on. So we got this guy here. Yeah, that's a monster puller. It did nothing. So I came over and I set it up on my press. Deformed the pulley. Still nothing. Had to get out the map gas. Get that thing about, I don't know, 400, 500 degrees. Pop, out it comes. Again, right now I'm actually letting it cool off a little bit, because I just got to put the bracket on, then I just got to stick the pulley right back down on it. I mean, this is how stupid this whole situation is. And not only that, but the shaft itself is threaded. So you could actually, if they took it off and left it off in a box and included a bolt with it, you could put it on to your heart's content. But no, they have to stick it on in the factory and they have to press it on. And it just screwed everything up. I didn't even want to use MAP gas or anything like that with this. You know, it's got rubber and seals and stuff inside. I mean, come on. But needless to say, I'm letting it cool off right now. As you can see, my pulley's a little deformed already. Yeah, brand new, right out of the box. But I'm going to go ahead and let that cool off for a few minutes, and I'm going to snap this bracket on and see if that works. Hold on a second. This is what I was saying about how you can take a whole day and get to the end of it, feel like you got nothing done. Oh boy. I don't know what's going on with this mess, but it is a mess. I ended up having to take a chunk out of my bracket because even with the pulley off, it would not fit over top of the boss for the fuel pump. So, that's done. It's on. It's temporarily put together with just a couple nuts and bolts. But I already see a major problem here. Yeah, that's a long way for a pulley. So I have to go some research. I have to do something. This is not right, so I'm gonna have to clean up a little bit of this mess and call it a night, and we will see you tomorrow with hopefully some better news. Alright, we need to reshoot this. Alright, I'm gonna shoot this part again. Frustration set in. I don't really think any of that worked. Alright, take two. Let's try that again. Alright, how are we gonna go about this? Yeah, we could use some bloopers, couldn't we? Ain't got none. Alright, we're gonna have to do all this again, because this is horrible. I don't like any of this. Alright, here we go. 21 seconds wasted already. That's gonna be a sucky ass download. Maybe we won't use any of that. I don't know. Alright, I'm gonna pause here. But until then, we'll see you